welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing a sewing video and I'm really excited to bring this video to you because I've been talking a lot about this subject on my Instagram and I wanted to share it here on YouTube in a more kind of structured video if I can. So that is making toiles and then also sewing together the Petite Dressmaker Bloomfield dress. You may have seen, if you follow me on Instagram, that I have been toiling the dress. I've been really trying to hone in on improving the fit of my garments, and this was the perfect dress to practice on because it has not only side bust darts but also bottom ones as well. I'll leave a diagram of the dress here so you can see what the style of the dress is like. So for me, I've always struggled with having sloped shoulders and having a slightly more petite frame. So when I found the Petite Dressmaker, I just knew I had to try the patterns because they are drafted with a petite frame in mind. They do also have a standard frame as well, but they have their patterns available in like a petite frame. So I just knew I had to make them, and I've been making a toile and I've made a couple of toiles now, and I've also done a few different fit variations on the pattern. So I wanted to bring it in this video so that anyone else is struggling with fitting garments and they're really trying to develop that side of garment making, then hopefully this video will offer you a little bit of advice and give you a little bit of confidence and inspiration to try fitting things a little bit more to your body. I thought I would show you what I've learned so far, and hopefully when I'm showing you bits and bobs throughout the make, it will also inspire you and help you try different things. So I know that was a very long intro, but if you are new to my channel, make sure to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and we're going to go straight on into it. The first thing I'm going to do is talk about fitting in general. Fitting a garment is one of the most challenging parts of garment making in general, and often it's the thing that puts people off making garments. However, it is very complex because every single change that you make to a pattern will alter a different part of that pattern. So say you change something a few millimeters on a dart, it will then mean you have to change the armhole, it might mean you have to change the length, it might mean you have to change the shoulder. So everything is affected by one small change, and there's a lot of maths and gridding and all of that fun stuff that gets involved. Now I owe a lot of thanks to a few things being able to challenge myself and actually develop my fitting knowledge is the community I've made on Instagram, because I've had so much help from people in my DMs. Someone called Jasmine.needle who has been so helpful. We've been chatting away with each other. She has a lot of similar issues in terms of fit to me. So for example, I have a very petite shoulder compared to my hip ratio, so I have very sloped shoulders. I've always had an issue with how narrow they are in compared to my torso. So you know, for example, if you buy a garment or you buy a top, and I'm always like that person that ends up having to lift it up and it should sort of sit here. You know, this is a ready to wear that I'm wearing at the moment, just a dress that I got from Georgia Asda, and you can see on this the neckline should really sit about here. So I always have that issue with garments where my shoulders are too sloped or they're too narrow / petite. Fitting garments can be a little bit complex when it comes to this. You wouldn't think so, you would think it was just a simple matter of just lifting it up and altering the neckline, but in doing that you reduce the amount of space that you have in your arm side and your sleeve, and then you also alter where the darts sit. So the question I always have is, okay, well in that case what do I do with fitting? So the process and the journey that I went on has been quite complex, and I thought I would talk through what I've done and sort of overlay images on my phone from fitting pictures and stuff that I've done along the way. So the first thing that I did was cut out the pattern in a piece of scrap fabric pattern, and you make it straight up from the pattern instructions themselves. So the pattern arrives, I've cut out my size as per the measurements on the back, and for reference I have made a size E on the top half, and I've graded it to an F on my hips. So I did that as per the measurements on the pattern. So I just checked my measurements, to the pattern instructions, saw that I was most like a size E, but my hips were a little bit bigger, which is usually the case, so I just did a simple grading from the side seams out. That's it. So then toiling it, I just cut out that size, made it in a daisy fabric, which you'll see here, and being able to fit it, the best thing to do is to put it on your body inside out so that your seams are exposed, and therefore you can pinch and grab at different parts of the seams and different parts of the make, and you can see where the fit isn't quite right. So for me, I had a lot of gaping around the armhole, so just above where my bust sits I was getting gaping here, but in terms of where the darts are sitting, the darts were actually really nice, they were sitting quite flat. The underarm seam and the side seams need to be perpendicular, I think is the name, or just straight if you want to be very simple about it. It needs to be straight, it doesn't want to be skewing round to the back or skewing round to the front. You want your seam at the side to be sitting nice and straight, which mine were, so that's really positive. So my seams were straight, my darts were sitting nice on the bust, but I was getting a lot of gaping around the armhole and a lot of excess fabric around the shoulders. So there's a few things that you can try if this happens to you also, and this is where it gets a little bit confusing, so I'll try and talk in as easy way as possible. As a beginner myself, I definitely found it a little bit headache inducing, so maybe we could write some notes along the way, or I'll add everything in the description box. So I thought here we can show you visually what I mean by what I'm saying. So the first thing you can do is very simple. You can do a slope shoulder adjustment. So essentially you would slope your shoulders and grade them at the sides, and then because the sleeve is puffy for this pattern, all you would need to do is gather in a little bit extra fabric in order to meet that sleeve into that new reduced armhole. So that's a very simple fix that you could try. If your darts are sitting nice and your side seams are sitting nice, try that option. Me personally, I could try that, but then I was still getting this gaping around my armhole. So the next thing that I spoke to my friend about was doing a full bust adjustment, which sounds a little bit intense, especially as the bust darts were already sitting quite nice. This was something that would require a lot of work and a lot more brain power if you've not done a full bust adjustment before. I will leave a Tilly in the Buttons blog post in the description box that describes what that is in really easy to digest way. I didn't actually do the full bust adjustment in the end, but a friend of mine who has a similar situation with me with the sloped shoulders and a more petite shoulder frame says sometimes a full bust adjustment can actually help because you're creating more ease around your bust line, and therefore you can just have, I think it's very simply make a smaller size and then do the full bust adjustment to allow for that increased measurement around the bust. So there's that way of doing it. Or there is something called a gaping armhole adjustment, which sounds very weird, but this is actually what I decided to do in the end. My lovely friend sent me some diagrams. Honestly, Jasmine, you were amazing help. And I'll also link the blog post from Seamwork, which is a post all about doing a gaping armhole. So if you're getting gaping around here but it's fitting everywhere else, then this is the one for you. So this is actually what I ended up doing to the next toile. So I'll insert a picture here. I altered the arm side by following this blog post, and I'll do a few diagrams as well of what that entailed. And once I did that, I just increased the arm side by 1 centimetre, and the fit was a lot better in this next toile that I made. I also made sure that the fold line of my front bodice, so this is my new altered piece by the way, so this is what it's looking like now. You can see where I've done that gaping armhole modification here, and what that's done is it's increased that dart on the side by 1 inch, so it means I can take more fabric away from that dart, and that's how I've done it. And then also with the shoulder, I've literally just graded it a little bit to be about 0.5 centimetre smaller, and that has been enough to actually make the pattern fit me a lot better. So it's just those tiny little tweaks, and then you therefore get a better fit. So this is where I got to. So I decided I was going to make a third toile completely from fresh. Someone suggested to me in my DMs, they said make sure you put the sleeve in, because when you put the sleeve in the bodice and you have the skirt of the dress on it as well, you get the gravity from the dress pulling it down ever so slightly, and obviously you get the sleeve pulling it down on your shoulder ever so slightly, so the fit actually alters when you do that. And from doing that and putting the sleeve into my bodice and then trying it on again, I realised that the fit actually wasn't as bad as I first initially thought. So it just was a case of going back to that armhole, gaping armhole adjustment. So all I did was I needed to alter the armhole by 1 centimetre, and then in terms of the sleeve, you could obviously alter your sleeve heads by 1 centimetre, but I've decided to just be very straightforward, leave the sleeve as it is, because there is so much gathering in the sleeve anyway. It just meant that I can just gather that excess centimetre into the sleeve head, and you're not going to notice any issues there. Call me crazy, but I'm just not ready yet to cut it out in my fabric. I'm going to be using this Ruby Star Society fabric with phones and rainbows on that's been in my stash for a few years, and it's quite expensive, and I just don't want to cut into it until I'm 100% sure that it is fitting perfecto. So I have decided to cut out a third toile, call me crazy, but this time it is actually going to be a wearable toile. So it's not going to be like the other ones I've shown you where it's just a quick mock-up from scrap fabrics that I have. I've actually cut it out in this pink fabric. So this is the fabric. I've got a lining in pink, which is from Minerva. It's just their classic anti-static lining, because you need to have lining pieces for this particular pattern. And then the fabric is a really gorgeous broderie anglaise that I got from Rainbow Fabric. So it's, you know, it's on the cheaper side, but it's got the same weight as the Ruby Star fabric that I'm going to be making the final version in, so that I can get a really good idea on how it fits, how it looks, and all of that kind of stuff from this wearable toile. So in this video I'm going to be making the wearable toile, and let's hope that it all comes together really nicely, and I'm just excited to see if the fit has worked. So yeah, we're going to go for it. So I'm going to put everything together. I'm actually going to do the actual sew along in my next video when I make the finalised version. Good evening. So I have just put together the Bloomfield dress, the toile, and I did a few sort of like videos of me trying it on. So you can see the fitting process was really straightforward. I put most of it together, like the outer pieces, and just tried it on as I was sewing it, as I was kind of constructing it. I was then putting it on and moving in it and just making sure that everything felt good. I didn't need to change or amend anything during the sewing. It literally was just coming together like spot on. So yeah, I'm going to clip now to the finished dress, and I hope you like it. I'm definitely going to do a sew along style of video for the finished version. So the dress is finished. I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. Here is the back tied up. I had to do the back tie myself, so it looks a bit messy, but I'm really pleased with it. And I think the fit is perfect in terms of it being a toile. I'd say the only two things that I'm going to change when I actually make it in my next fabric and I do the sew along for you guys is I'm going to reduce this neckline by 1 centimetre I just think that will sit nicer on my body and I won't feel so, not suffocated, but you know what I mean, it's just a little bit tight here, so I'm going to bring that down a tiny bit. And then also going to make sure that the sleeve gathers start a little bit lower, because you can see they're kind of humped where I had to do that armhole adjustment and I've had to gather in the sleeve more. I think I'm going to make sure that I gather it from slightly lower on the sleeve so that I don't get this kind of quite so crazy bump at the top. And yeah, I'm happy with the sleeves as they are on this. They kind of sit a little bit funky, but with a little bit of wiggling around they look cute. And I like the little puff. I'd actually say I'd probably reduce almost the puff sleeve maybe a little bit in the next one, But overall I'm really pleased. I think the bodice fitting came together, and I think you can definitely see the difference that those tweaks have made to the fit, the armhole adjustment and everything else. And I just think this fabric is one of those fabrics that tends to crease a little bit. So overall I'm really pleased with how the fit has turned out, and I hope you found this video helpful. If, like me, you are unsure about fitting and stuff like that, just try and give it a go. So yeah, I hope you found it helpful. I'll leave everything that I mentioned in the description box below, all of the resources that I used, blog posts and all that kind of stuff. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time. Bye!